Let's go back in time. We're in Bourbon County, Kentucky, on a fateful Easter Sunday in 1848. Now, this is a day that's supposed to be about resurrection, but it's about to become a day of reckoning. And it all centers around a meticulously planned feast where, believe me, justice, not grace, is the main course. The story kicks off in the dark, before dawn, with this one chilling sound. And you just know, this isn't about grinding herbs for a simple meal. No, this is the sound of a plan born from unimaginable grief being set into motion. It just hangs in the air and sets the tone for everything that's about to happen. And at the absolute heart of this story is Naomi. She's a 43-year-old enslaved woman, and she has spent decades of her life toiling in the cotton fields. But on this particular Easter Sunday, she has decided that the years of silent suffering are over. Today, she's going to be heard. So you have to ask yourself, what could possibly drive a person to such an extreme and dangerous act? Well, the answer is rooted in a kind of pain that's hard for most of us to even fathom. It all begins with a mother's grief. I mean, just think about the sheer cruelty of this. Her daughter, Mercy, who was only 11 years old, was sold off to Mississippi. And for what? So her owner, Judge Bellwether, could buy himself a new horse? This wasn't just a loss for Naomi. It was the final, brutal straw that shattered any last bit of obedience she had left. But this act of rebellion, it wasn't some spontaneous burst of rage. Oh no. This was a calculated, carefully prepared plot, and it was timed to happen on the holiest day of the Christian year. Naomi's weapons weren't guns or knives. They were things she gathered in secret from the Kentucky woods. Roots and leaves. We're talking nightshade, hemlock, and oleander, all incredibly deadly. And this wasn't common knowledge. This was wisdom that had been passed down to her. A kind of secret legacy of resistance from an old African woman who understood the incredible power that grew wild right there in the earth. And you know, others in the enslaved community, they could feel that something was deeply wrong. Old Samuel, a man who'd seen 70 winters, he felt it. His comment here, it's not really about the weather, it's a premonition. He has that deep-seated sense of observation that you only get from a lifetime of survival, and he knows the whole atmosphere on the plantation has changed. So who exactly were the targets of this plot? Well, they were 8 of the most powerful and notoriously cruel enslavers in all of Kentucky. And here they are, gathering at the Bellwether plantation, completely clueless that they're walking into their final meal. And here's a look at the specific kinds of cruelty Naomi was fighting against. You have Ezekiel Harrow, whose specialty was breaking the spirits of men. The widow Constance Blackwood with her awful silver-tipped cane. The Cross brothers, who saw tearing families apart as just another business strategy. Every single guest at that table represents a different, ugly facet of the brutal system that Naomi was about to bring crashing down, one plate at a time. And listen to this. This quote was actually spoken by one of the Cross brothers in the parlor, and it just perfectly captures their entire mindset. They're talking about human beings like they're livestock, debating the most efficient ways to control them. To them, the threat of destroying a family isn't some monstrous act of cruelty. It's a delightfully euphemistic management tool. And with that, let's move into the dining room. The table looks perfect. The finest china, the whitest linens, gleaming silver. It's a picture-perfect image of Southern hospitality. But just beneath that beautiful surface, a deadly reckoning is waiting. The whole meal just unfolds with this horrifying, unbelievable irony. As they're eating, they're debating theology and Darwin, twisting philosophy to justify their own sense of superiority. They praise the lamb's magnificent seasoning with absolutely no idea that the unique flavor is death itself. And their final toast? It's to another profitable year, built on the very suffering that they're, unknowingly, about to end. And then you get this moment where the irony is just staggering. Judge Bellwether is talking about the secret recipe for the lamb, and he just casually mentions that Naomi will have to die eventually to protect his advantage. He's speaking his own prophecy, and he has absolutely no clue that the recipe he's praising is the very thing that's about to end him. So after dinner, the guests all move to the parlor for brandy. They feel warm, they feel satisfied, completely safe. But the poison is patient. And now, the reckoning begins. 8 masters. 8 masters who thought they were invincible, all brought down by one poisoned lamb. It's the brutal, simple math of Naomi's justice. And then, the confession. Just as they start to convulse and realize something is terribly wrong, Naomi steps forward. She doesn't hide. She calmly explains what she's done with this chilling clarity, framing her act not as murder, but as simply serving them the same poison they've forced on her people for centuries. And here's a crazy part. The poison seems to act like some kind of truth serum. In their delirious final moments, all their darkest secrets come pouring out. Constance Blackwood admits she murdered her own husband. Thaddeus confesses to having Naomi's husband, Solomon, hanged. The hypocritical Reverend Pike actually quotes scripture correctly for the first time in his life. And Ezekiel Harrow, the so-called breaker of men, is completely broken himself, begging for a mercy he never, ever gave to anyone else. The masters are dead. The parlor goes silent. But you know the story doesn't end there. Now we have to turn to the aftermath, and the two very, very different definitions of justice that are at play. And this contrast just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have the master's law, a system of ownership, control, and violence, all written down on paper. On the other, you have Naomi's justice. It's organic, grown from the earth, and fueled by a grief that the master's law created but could never hope to contain. This was a rebellion against the entire idea that one human being could own another. And this is Naomi's final, defiant statement to the sheriff who comes to arrest her. She knew her act was so much bigger than the 8 bodies on the floor. She had introduced a terrifying new idea into their world, that the oppressed could fight back with the very tools of their servitude. She didn't just poison a meal, she poisoned their entire system's sense of security, leaving behind a legacy of fear that would linger long, long after she was gone.
Subscribe to the Hub of Crime Analysis.